All right, we're live. All right, we're live. We're back with another episode of the MuuvWell podcast, and you can see our setup has changed just a little bit today. Slight technical difficulties, but we adapt and we keep moving, so it's all good. We have a guest with us today, so you can see Kevin's out, Logan's out. So unfortunately, all of you all got stuck with me in the podcast host chair. So I apologize for Adam having to deal with me today. But we have Adam Boyles join us today on the podcast, going to do a recap of a race he did, and also just kind of digging a little bit deeper to his background of his running journey, his fitness journey, and just kind of understand a little bit more about that and how it's impacted him. But before we get started, we always like to do a couple housekeeping things. We have a Patreon account people can subscribe to, $10 a month. It allows us to support our ministries here locally and be able to reach more people at our monthly athletic club events that we do, our wellness social. We actually have our next one on Tuesday coming up at 5 p.m. here in Bowling Green at the Old Mall. So come out. We'll do a quick talk on MuuvWell and then have a free workout session for individuals that want to come and participate. That's next Tuesday at 5 at the Old Mall, the WKU Innovation Campus here at Western Kentucky. So come on out. With the Patreon subscription, you also get access to our monthly Common Grounds. We just had one on Monday. It's our internal Bible study led by one of our team members who's also a pastor. So you get access to that. Our members of Patreon were actually on our last internal Common Ground. So it's great to have some outside individuals there as well. And then also, just want to also shout out our executive wellness offering that we have. So that's our initial direct-to-consumer offering that anybody that wants to work with MuuvWell, they can. Initially, before, it was always limited to the entire business population if we work directly business to business. And now we can offer it up to anybody. So if you are interested in the executive wellness piece and what that could offer, you can email us at info@MuuvWell for any information on that, or reach out to us on any of our social platforms. So now that all of the housekeeping is out of the way, so I get to introduce Adam Boyles here. So Adam and I have just met just right before this. I don't know if we'd ever met in person before.
I don't think so.
I'm still getting to know him just as here on the podcast. So it's kind of nice, especially just to be able to allow the conversation to flow pretty easy, I feel like. So I just want to give a little, I want Adam to give a little intro on you, your background, how you got connected with MuuvWell and some of the running community, and then we can just start the conversation from there, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. What's up? I'm Adam. I've been in Bowling Green for about a decade, and about 3 weeks ago, I moved away from Bowling Green and into Paducah, which is western part of Kentucky. So still trying to get used to that. So we're schedules are a little bit crazy right now, but super glad that we were able to still come up here and make this work. I was telling Wade that we still have a house here that we're selling, so it's kind of nice for my wife to drop me off here and her go check and make sure it hasn't burnt down or anything. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess a little bit of background about me is, I grew up a couple hours east of here, I guess southeast of here, and just super small town on a tobacco farm. Pretty poor family. A lot of siblings, parents. Worked factory jobs, kind of thing. So it was probably college, I think, until I understood even really what. Hey, I should probably take care of my body sometimes, with physical fitness. And that being said, there wasn't an example that was set in my household, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to find that, I think, in my life and to really make that a routine. So I make it. I use that as an example to say, now, my daughter's 5 and she goes in the gym with me, most of the time. We have a home gym. She has her own, if I'm down there doing boxing stuff or Muay Thai stuff or jiu-jitsu stuff, whatever, or just lifting weights, she has her own section. She has her own dumbbells. She has her own gloves, her own bag, all this stuff. and she thinks it's, it's fun.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's what I want her to know, that it is fun.
Yeah. And just to see it as normal from childhood on. Right. And like, now we honestly have pretty similar backgrounds. I don't know. Like I said, we hadn't really talked before. So I grew up.
I know nothing about your.
Yeah. So very similar. I'm one of 5 kids. I'm the youngest of 5. Big family too. My mom is one of 11 siblings. My dad is one of 6. So big families on both sides. Grew up on a farm. We farm tobacco as well. So it's pretty funny. We have a lot of similarities. So we know, we know what that childhood is like. Yeah, that's for sure. But I also want to kind of hit on too, a little bit from your childhood. It sounded like you're working on a farm, and that's pretty physical labor, but it seemed like it didn't carry over outside of the physical labor you were doing and focus on the nutrition and stuff as well. Which I totally get that. And if your parents are feeding multiple people, it's usually, we had either hamburgers, chicken, French fries with most meals, and it was,
Whatever was fast.
Yeah, whatever's fast and easy, and whatever we had back from the garden, put back. We had canned beans and all that stuff.
So, like it's hard for me. I like green beans.
Yeah.
But like now I'm so bougie about like if you crack open a can of like a can of green beans, I'm like, this is garbage.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had a lot of. I look back on it now and I'm like, there's so many cool options that we could have had.
Yeah.
Because we had like farm fresh food. We, all of our meat was fresh.
Yeah.
Because, my grandpa's a cattle farmer. Like all this stuff, like all that stuff was fresh. And now it's like, we've gone back to that. And it's like, now we try to source everything from a garden.
Yeah.
We try to get like fresh beef and stuff like that. And I'm like, we had all that at our fingertips, but no one no one knew anything about, no one focused on portion control and things like that. So, and then, genetics wise too, I talk about genetics all day. I have very poor genetics for, building muscle and losing fat rapidly and things like that. But if my parents taught me anything, if my grandparents taught me anything, it's like how to work.
Yeah.
And like, I'm a hard worker.
Yeah.
Like I'm always the hardest worker in the room. But a lot of times it's like, there's ways to do that efficiently too. And that's what I wasn't like understanding for most of my fitness life.
Yeah.
So
no, that's neat.
How to really do that efficiently.
Well, yeah. And I think having that childhood, like you said, the one thing that carries over is work, and nothing that you do or that you want to accomplish is ever going to come easy. And you're going to have to put in a lot of work behind it. And I know today in the social media age, it can make things seem like overnight success, but that's never the case. And it's always a process, and it's always a journey, and you're going to fail, and it's going to suck most of the time. And it's just one of those things you just got to continue just being consistent with over time. So yeah, talk a little bit more about your fitness journey, how long it's been. I did a little stalking on social media, so I know it's something that you're pretty open about as well. And I'm sure we're going to continue to see some similarities, because I'm already seeing even more lining up right now. So yeah, I just want to hear a little bit more about, it sounded like when you went to college, you started to take nutrition, fitness a little bit more serious. So when did you kind of take that next step and being more consistent with it, and any struggles or failures you had with that as well?
I mean, probably 90% of it's struggles.
Yeah.
And then just learning what works for me and things like that. But I like to use this example. In middle school, in probably the 5th or 6th grade, I probably weighed more than I do now. And at 4'6" at the time, it wasn't a great look, but I was a hard worker.
Yeah.
So like my brothers and I, so I grew up in a family of, I had 1 sister and 3 brothers. So my brothers and I started a lawn mowing business because I had 2 older brothers. So I would have been probably 11 or 12, I think, and I was just the crew guy, I guess.
Yeah.
So I would run the weed eater, or just whatever like junk work needed to be done. I would have to walk the yard and make sure there's nothing out there, while they're running the mower.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So I learned to work from a very early age, and obviously, like we had a tobacco farm. Like, my is all of my grandpa's land. So like, my grandpa's he also worked in the factory too. Like these are, my whole family's always had like multiple jobs, and they're all hard workers. So like my grandpa doesn't have time to get out into the field and chop the weeds down and top the tobacco and stuff.
Yeah.
That's what all the kids were.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. All that work was.
That's why you had a lot of kids. It was free labor back then. So yeah, it was good.
Well, I think technically there were certain times of the year that he would pay us like $5 an hour, and that was like huge money for us. Like we didn't see any other money, but yeah. So fast forward. So middle school, a pretty overweight kid. And it never seemed to like bother me, I think, because I was decently strong, I think, for my build. I didn't get out of breath crazy easy. I had some endurance because I was used to working.
Yeah.
So that it just never really bothered me that I was, just bigger. So, and no one really ever pointed it out, I guess. Well, in high school, I started my brother's a baseball player, one of my brothers. And I saw he was in the gym pretty often with the baseball team, and they invited me out one time, and I was like, all right, well, I'll go out. And the way I guess that I thought about it is like, oh, well, I do physical labor. So like that's way, better than going to the gym. I don't need to go to the gym. Like I do physical labor. And then I got into the gym. And after not being able to walk for an entire week, it's no joke. It was my first leg day ever in my entire life, and I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
I was 16, and I drove a stick shift truck, and I couldn't drive my truck for like 3 days because my legs wouldn't work. I was at the end of this workout, I was throwing up in the bathroom. I couldn't stand up. It was the most awful experience of my life, and I'm like, who would ever want to go back to a gym after that? Because it's like, the quote unquote hard worker in me was like, oh, I'll just do whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
It's just not what you do, especially if you've never lifted a weight before. So, and, they're squatting, they, a couple 100 pounds, that they're doing reps with. I'm like, oh, I'll just do that. And they're like, I don't think that's a good idea. And I'm like, no, it's cool. Don't worry about it. Anyway, yeah. So horrifying experience for my first workout. And I'm like, well, I'm never going to do that again.
Yeah.
So, but I ended up, because I hit kind of a growth spurt, which I'm a pretty short guy anyway. A growth spurt for me was like 3 inches.
Yeah.
Spurred from 5'3" to 5'6" in high school. Like I dropped a little bit of weight with that too, which was really nice. And it kind of looked like I did, do like work at that point. So I'm like, all right, this is a fine build for me. I'm not quite, the pudgy, middle school kid anymore. So I'm fine with this. So fast forward into college, I get paired up with my roommate. Shout out Chuck Berry, and just a random roommate, and we're still like best friends to this day. But random roommate, super Christian guy, athletic, I couldn't have asked for anybody better as a roommate. But he started waking up and running every morning because he was a tennis player for Lindsey Wilson's, where I went to school.
Okay.
And he was there on tennis scholarship, so he would wake up at like 5 a.m. and run. And I'm like, dude, that's psychotic. Like I've literally never ran in my entire life to this point. And he was like, do you want to get up and run with me? And I'm like, no, like, why would I do that? And he was like, well, at least he's like, you should at least go to the gym with me. And I'm like, all right. So I started going to the gym with him, and I realized after I was going 2 or 3 times a week, maybe. I realized after a couple of months, I'm like, I have some decent genetics to build muscle. Because I'm seeing some pretty, those newbie gains.
Yeah.
Like I saw that quick, and I'm like, all right, this is pretty cool. Like just a huge confidence boost. And so after that, I'm like, all right, well, I could probably do a little more to show some of this muscle off. So I started choosing, whenever we go through the line, at lunch, I'm like, I knew nothing about nutrition. I'm like, well, I probably shouldn't get the pizza and cheeseburger, which was no joke an option every lunch and dinner. If you didn't like the main course there, they had a pizza and cheeseburger station. I just went straight to that twice a day.
Yeah.
Horrifying, right? So I'm like, all right, well, maybe I should opt in for a salad or something. So I started throwing some of that in the mix, and then I got up and ran with them a couple of times, and I'm like, man, this whole thing is just so hard. Fast forward, I basically stopped doing that. I stopped running. I'm like, I'm not doing the nutrition thing. I got out of college where I didn't have, his accountability.
Yeah.
Dude, I blew up like a balloon. I gained probably 80 pounds out of college, and which does not look good on my frame, by the way. So so I get, I meet my wife. She doesn't care. She's a big workout person though. So it's like, I think basically what I'm getting at is like, anytime I wanted to step away from like trying to do the right thing for my health, my body and stuff, like God put someone else in my life who was like, hey man, maybe you should like wrangle it back in a little. So, so I meet my wife and, she like her and her roommate run, 3 or 4 days a week. They go to the gym all the time. They, super healthy, like eating and all this stuff. And she didn't care, that I didn't do any of that. And she's just like, oh, we like each other. So we date for a couple years, we get married and we kind of figure out like, hey, we should probably do some type of fitness routine. So I started building a gym because I'm like, all right, I don't like running. I don't like whatever, but I'm like, what do I like to do? Like, what am I going to do that I actually stick with? So I'm like, oh, I remember back in college, I loved lifting weights. So I started lifting weights and I built my first home gym. And I think I've had 5 at this point. But my first one, I just get on. What was Facebook Marketplace before Facebook Marketplace?
It's like Craigslist.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm gonna say there was like a Craigslist. That was the only other one that I really remember.
Craigslist, and I think that because at the time we lived in Louisville, and that was the first house that we bought together as a married couple, and I think they had like a local version of that in Louisville, because I feel like I don't know. Anyway, but I found I would find like a couple of sets of dumbbells here and a barbell here and all this. So I just kind of pieced together this this little lifting room, and we had the house that we had in Louisville was like this very, very old house. It was like built in the 60s, so it had this super low. For me, it was a low.
Yeah,
dude, like you would have you could have used this house. It was like a hobbit house basically, but in the basement it had like these 6.5-foot ceilings or something. And I'm like, I really want a power rack in here because I've been watching all these videos on powerlifting. Like, I want to try that. So I find some website that has like power racks for short guys, and I buy one of those and I start powerlifting. So I did that for 3 or 4 years probably, and I got pretty strong, like to the point where I'm like, maybe I should like try to like cut weight and compete.
Yeah,
because I'm like, for my frame, I could cut quite a lot. Like I was a pretty big guy.
Yeah.
I'm like, I could cut a lot of weight, probably keep most of my strength and like be semi-competitive, like locally. So, so I started thinking about that and I hurt my back and that kind of halted a lot of my, I mean, you've had injuries before.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but we all have who've stuck with this for a while. Basically what I did is I had 3 or 4 pinched discs or pinched nerves in my lower back. And I had a disc. It wasn't ruptured. It was, I forgot what the guy told me. I forgot what it was.
Yeah. Probably not fully ruptured. It can be bulging or something along those lines. Yeah.
Bulging disc.
Yeah.
So bulging disc and 3 pinched nerves. And they like MRI'd it and they're like, oh yeah, we can immediately start like, this, and this. And I was already freaked out because my dad's had 6 back surgeries in his life, and he's like mostly artificial at this point. And like I grew up knowing like how much pain my dad was in all the time, and how it's like each surgery they had to do another surgery to fix
to counteract the first one. Oh yeah, yeah. Once you start down the road of back surgeries, it's kind of hard to look back because, like you said, I mean, if you fuse a place together, so like L4-5, right, L3 and S1 are going to have to move a lot more because L4-5 is not moving anymore, right? So then you just start getting issues above and below that chain a lot. Yeah.
I think that was they tried artificial like discs initially.
Yeah.
They failed, and then they tried fuses, and then they went in because his back was like he was slumped forward so bad because he literally couldn't hold himself up, and they said, oh well, we'll just put some titanium rods in to like keep you upright. So then it's like his body was trying to fight the rods, and it was just a nightmare.
Yeah.
But I grew up, like seeing all of this. So I'm like, all right, the last thing I want is like somebody like cut my back. So this was my first experience ever going to a chiropractor, and I would totally shout him out if I knew who he was. This was in Wayne County, which was neighboring to where I grew up, and someone told me to go there and see this guy, and I'm like, man, I grew up, in a farm family. I'm like, chiropractors are witch doctors, like, all this stuff. And they're like, seriously, they're like, this guy's a lifter. Like he knows, like he knows his stuff. And, he's a firm believer that the body can heal itself. So I'm like, all right, I'll go chat with him, because at this point I can't even get in and out of my vehicle without just like falling out. So I go talk with him, and, he does his own x-ray, and he's like, he's like, you've got nerves pinched all the way up, but he's like, how about this? He's like, I want you to come back and see me for a month, but he's like, how about he's like, give me today. He's like, let me work on you for like 20 minutes. And if you're not 50% better, like, you never have to come back again. And dude, that was the most amazing thing that ever happened to me that day. And I go to the chiropractor all the time now, for preventative maintenance and things like that. But that was like my first introduction to like someone who took his health seriously, and someone who was like physically, like a physically fit person. And so I went back to him for like a month, and I started talking to him a lot about form. No one's ever showed me like how to properly lift weights. No one's ever showed me. So that was my first like quote unquote coach, I guess. I mean, technically I was paying him for, our sessions. I guess.
You still pay your coaches. Yeah.
And then it's like nowadays as an adult, I'm like, coaches are more important. Like even if like, coaches also need coaches too.
Yeah.
Like you have to have someone like holding you accountable for the, for that kind of thing. But, and to make it, to make sure that you're not focusing too much on, one thing versus the other. So,
well, it seems like there's a lot of themes coming up just hearing you talk a little bit about that, especially from college with your roommate. You had a friend that pushed you out of your comfort zone, tried to hold you accountable to take your health a little bit serious. Had your wife, once y'all first started dating, right? And her holding you accountable for that. And not only holding you accountable, but just seeing like, hey, if we're going to have this life together, what do we want our life to look like long-term, right? And then also your coach, the chiropractor guy that helped you with that. So it seems like you got a lot of the themes of people pushing you out of your comfort zone and holding you accountable in more of the fitness realm. So do you find yourself surrounding yourself with people like that now to continue to hold yourself accountable? And do you ever still feel yourself kind of slip back into your old ways? Away from that accountability too. So talk a little bit about that, because it was interesting just hearing more of your background, because I was very same way all the way through middle school. I weighed probably like 190 pounds in 5th grade. My senior year in high school, I weighed 190 pounds. And so you can see, and I grew about 8 inches. That definitely helped quite a bit. My family had a lawn mowing business growing up. My brother and I ran. So it's kind of funny hearing that similarities. But then also I've had so many great people in my life to kind of help hold me accountable as well and pull the best out of me. Most importantly, probably here with Kevin, like he definitely keeps me accountable to what I'm doing. And now with all of our clients, very similar, like you going to a chiropractor. I've had experiences going to physicians and other people in the medical facility where you walk in and they're telling you to make these life changes, and you're like thinking in the back of your mind, is this person practicing what they're preaching to? So I never wanted someone to walk into my PT practice thinking the same thing too, right? So I just want to hear a little bit more about the accountability piece, where you still may struggle with that as well and fall back into your old ways. Cause I know I myself struggle with that all the time too. So I'd like to get your insights on that as well.
Yeah. I've been I wouldn't even call it like a yo-yo diet or anything like that, because I know it's like, once you've taken nutrition and health, or not even just nutrition, just health in general, seriously for a while, you know what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can hire people to tell you, you can, in the end, you know what you have to do. It's just whether you're going to do it or not. So I've definitely gone through these phases. I did powerlifting, got hurt, and was like, all right, I probably need to cut weight, be a little bit healthier. So I started hanging out with some bodybuilders, CrossFitters, and I started, that's where I actually, probably ran for the really consistently the first time in my entire life, but I'm gonna start hanging out with the dang CrossFitters. But yeah, so I went through that phase in life where I got down like kind of lean. It was the first time I ever, dropped down to when I was powerlifting, I was usually between 190 and 210, which is a pretty big range for my height.
Yeah.
But I was somewhere around there because I'm like, oh, I have to eat a lot to be strong, and which is not true. But yeah, I started hanging with bodybuilders and started doing their stuff, and I dropped down to like the 160 area. And I'm like, all right, that feels great. Like I can walk without getting winded. I can, all this. I started doing, I wasn't running. I was doing, CrossFit, like 400 meter.
Yeah.
Runs.
400 to 800 meter runs. It seemed like,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, all right, well, that's horrendous. I'll never do more than that. Yeah.
Never say never in life, right? Yeah.
So, and then like I left that and I gained, that was probably in like 2014, 2015. So what years is it? So 12, 13 years ago or something. Was, that was the first time I ever physically saw oh, I might have some abs underneath. Like that's crazy. And then, okay, so that was actually, I'm getting my timelines messed up. Anyway, but yeah, I've done that like where it's like I'll get a little bit lean for a bit, and then I just kind of get tired of taking care of myself. But like that like I guess in my mind that's what I played up. I'm like, man, I worked really hard. I deserve like a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
So I would take a 2 or 3 months and just really not do much. Like I would always be in the gym at least twice a week or something, to maintain muscle, but I just start eating like crap or like an old habit that followed me from college was like, a couple times a week, like me and the boys would just like, drink a bunch of beers and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, that's fine. Like, it's not that big of a deal or whatever. And then it's like, I started seeing like fast forward, a few years later, I'm finding that there's like parts of my body that I can't drop weight from. And I start tracking my sleep. You start figuring out these other things you can do for your health. Or tracking my sleep, and I'm like, wow, my sleep is horrendous.
Yeah.
But like I slept 9 hours, and then it's like, so I start reading books on nutrition, on alcohol, and things like that. And I'm like, oh, like I had beers with the boys 6 days ago, and my body still hasn't technically caught up from the sleep from 6 days. I'm like, that's crazy. Started looking at the science of all that. So I've just learned. I'm such a slow learner because I'm kind of hard-headed, and I think is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So it's like I know, we know just when we make a choice in the day, we make one choice and we know whether that's a good or bad choice.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like I had all these compounding choices that I'm like, oh, that's probably not that bad, but I just had so many of those choices built up.
Yeah.
And they would build up like over, the period of a few months. I would gain weight, and then I would just get crazy strict because when I tell myself I'm going to do something, I do it. So I'd be like, oh, dude, I got to drop 20 pounds. I just cut all the BS. I would drop the weight and then be like, oh, nice. And then like gain it all
right back to it. Yeah.
So I did that for so many years.
And I think that's kind of the reverse of what we try to practice here with MuuvWell. It's we tell people strive for 5. So those small, consistent wins over time are going to add up. But also, it can act in the reverse. Like, oh, well, this one small change or one relax is okay, but you got to make sure and not let that become the norm, right? And it sounds like I'm very similar. Like for me, it's usually all or nothing, and it's hard to keep that consistent for extended periods of time in my life. Like kind of looking back at my journey as well. So, yeah, common theme. But yeah, whenever you start to see yourself for doing it for more than 2 weeks, it's probably a part of who you are now. And if you need to start making those changes, you probably need to do a little more self-reflection to kind of make those changes back.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know, I mean, this is a story or it tells all this time, but I think the time it started sticking with me more long-term was the first time I ever did the 75 hard challenge.
Yeah.
And that was,
when'd you do that? What year?
I'm trying to think. That might've been 5 or 6 years ago or something.
Probably right at the beginning of COVID, right? When it kind of started getting pushed out quite a bit. Yeah.
During COVID, when you were a glorified hero for ordering DoorDash, oh my God, dude. I gained like 30 pounds in like 3 months because I didn't have anything to do.
Yeah.
We were just sitting around like playing our Switches and like eating food. Like we're like, oh, well, the world's going to end anyway. I did 0 exercise. Like it was, I just became like this, couch potato basically. Yeah. So, and then of course, as soon as the world was like, oh no, I think everything's going to be fine. I'm like, ah, crap.
Yeah.
So I had to turn around and, honestly, that might've been the year I did it. I don't remember. I'd have to go back on my feed and look probably, but maybe that was the year I did it. But but I saw this challenge because one thing that was lingering in my mind is like, yeah, I'm like, I knew my nutrition was bad. But I drink too often, like that kind of thing. So I'm like, oh, this would be a nice reset. And I'm like, well, it's only 75 days, like whatever, that's 3 months, not quite that. But I'm like 75 days, that's, I can do that. And then, like maybe it'll just stick with me because it's like whatever they say after 60 days, it's supposed to be more of a habit.
Yeah.
So I found myself fighting that. I've done 75 hard at least once a year since then. So just a kind of more of an accountability thing. And so I did that, and I did it very aggressively. And I don't even remember. I think I dropped 35 pounds or something crazy in that time period. And I got it was the leanest I've ever been. And I felt great, dude. I was I was still doing some powerlifting at the time, or I was at least tracking my big three, my squat, bench, and deadlift. And my big three went up after losing 35 pounds. And I'm like, dude, this is nuts. I've always been a hard worker, but I'd never worked that hard in the gym before, I think. So that was my first time really seeing like, okay, I can also make really healthy choices and be really strong. That was the first time that ever like correlated.
Yeah.
Or I ever actually, I guess, saw that. So like right after that, I was like, I don't know, maybe it stuck with me for like a couple more weeks or something after that. And then I just slowly, like over the period of, a couple months or something, fell back into like a lot of the same similar routines. And then what I would do at that point is like, all right, a few months would go by, I'd hit the scale, I'd be like 10 pounds heavier than what I liked at that point. And I'm like, all right, let's clean it up. And then I would do like a 6-week challenge or something. Because when I tell myself I'm going to do something, I do it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, 6 weeks, no BS, 2 days in the gym. I did that for so long until about maybe 3 years ago or something when I started running. And that's been, my wife told me this the other day because I was telling her that I was going to come talk to you. And she's like, what are you going to talk about? And I'm like, I don't know, probably just like fitness or whatever. And one thing she brought up was she's like, she's like, how long have you been around like this body weight? And I'm like, that's, more than a couple of years now. And she's like, when did you start running? And I'm like, oh my God. Like I never even like put the two
together. Yeah.
Together. But yeah, I never really started running until my mother-in-law made a sign up for this 5K or something. And I'm like, at the time, I'm like, I'm an animal in the gym. And I'm like, a 5K? I'm like, all right, what's that, 3 mile? What was that, like 20 minutes or something?
Yeah.
Granted, I haven't ran since the 400s in CrossFit, okay? Keep that in mind. And I'm like, all right, yeah, I got there, run 20 minutes, and I'm done. And I went out there and just sucked wind for like 35 minutes. It was the most awful thing that's ever happened to me in my life. So this was in Louisville. It was not a nice course either. And
which park were you at? Were you at a park somewhere downtown? Either Cherokee or Iroquois, either one of them have such massive hills too. Yeah.
And dude, I don't remember, but it was just awful. That was so I pulled a groin on that one too. It's funny.
Common themes, man. We're talking about themes. Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, but my training run I did for my one training run I did for this 5K is I ran 1 mile on the treadmill. And I did it in like 10 minutes. And then I was like, oh, that's probably not good. So, but yeah, I got out there and just ate it, dude. It chewed me up so bad. And then we went and walked around the zoo because it was in Louisville. So we walked around the zoo afterwards. And like, dude, I'm cramped up so bad. Like I didn't understand like hydration very well. I didn't understand like nothing. It's just a 5K. And it did that to me. And I'm like, all right. I think after I did that, I'm like, I found something I'm very, very, very bad at, and I need to get better.
Yeah.
So that's what the past few years have been.
Well, that's awesome. So that's your kind of your intro into running was a 5K that you struggled miserably at, right? Well, that's pretty neat.
That just destroyed me.
And you should be thanking your mother-in-law, I guess, too, right, for signing you up for that 5K.
For her, dude, she's an animal.
Yeah.
For her 70th birthday this year. couple months. I don't remember. We do so many races now. I don't even know. It's just nuts. I feel like we're always doing something. But we went to Disney and did the Disney half. So she wanted to do that for her 70th birthday. So I mean, like, to have that kind of mentality at 70, dude.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I hope that's me. So.
Well, sounds like you're continuing to be surrounded by the people that are holding you accountable and kind of pushing you a little bit more. And it's just kind of ingrained, especially now with your family. It's part of your family's culture, right? And like, it's neat being a dad, right? Do you have just one kid, right? Yeah. So I have 2 small kids. My oldest will be 5 next month, and I have a 2-year-old. And so how do we ingrain that in their culture, right? So it's neat to see you all starting to do that from a young age too. So as far as the running, so now we've gotten into running, and then you're like, man, I'm terrible at it. Seems like just from every theme. I think running is one thing that will always humble you, no matter how good you're at. And you're never going to have great days all the time. You're going to have some good days, some really bad days. Some days you just want to quit. Some days you have it set out for an X amount and you don't make it that far because it's just one of those days. But as far as, did you do your first marathon? Was it this year?
No.
Or was it last year?
Last year.
Okay. So recently ran your first marathon, and then now you're starting to take that next step into ultra marathons, which is even more crazy. So you're in perfect company here with all of us. So we've been crazy enough to try them out as well.
Yeah, you guys are psychopaths. So.
Well, yeah, you can probably say that. Yeah, I'm not gonna combat that discussion. But so just talk to us about going from the 5K to being like, man, that was tough, and you're like, okay, I need to continue to challenge myself, and then that journey to the marathon, and then we'll jump into the Land Between the Lakes or the Great American Trail Race, 50 miler that you ran this past weekend too, and kind of get into that.
Yeah. So after that 5K, I was like, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never. Well, and the fact that we did do it and I did finish it, my mother-in-law is like immediately, because my mother-in-law gets what she wants. That's what I figured out. She's very nice about it.
Most mother-in-laws are like that.
They get what they want. And you know what? They put in the time, they put in the work. And,
we can be respectful to our elders. Yeah.
Sure. And the great thing about being a Paducah now is, like, now in the morning, like, I go drop my daughter off at daycare, just like run by their house and like have a cup of coffee and just hang out with her for a minute. And so it's cool to be that close to, people who do push you, like you were saying, like that type of accountability. So a lot of that is her too. I mean, she's the one who kind of spearheaded all of this for me. So, yeah, I get back and I start thinking, like, I've always been the kind of person to, I don't know. I feel like maybe when I was a kid, like if something was really hard, I would just kind of ignore it. I'm like, all right, well, that's not for me. And, as I've gotten older, it's like I see a challenge and I'm like, oh, it's fun 75 hard probably helped me a lot with that. It's like, oh, I can do really hard things if I really want to do them. So after that first 5K, I was like, all right, obviously I suck at running. But I'm like, that's something I know you get better at if you do it. So I'm like, maybe I should start thinking about, like, doing more running. And I'm like, all right, I'll entertain the thought. Months went by. I did nothing with that at all.
Thought's still there, but yeah, I haven't acted on it yet. Yeah.
Until I did my first Murph workout for Memorial Day. And, at this time I'm pretty stout. Like I said, I'm pretty good in the gym. So I'm looking at this Murph workout and people are like, oh, you should do this. And I'm like, all right. I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, it's just a mile. I've never put on a weighted vest before, by the way. So this is another thing that humbled me. So I'm like, oh, it's a mile. And I'm like, oh, it's just a bunch of push-ups and pull-ups. And, I'm like, dude, this is cake. So I do this Murph with some other guys and they're like, oh, well, you have to wear this vest. And I'm like, oh, it's just 20 pounds, whatever. So I did the first mile and was like, oh, that kind of sucked. And then I started doing pull-ups with this vest on. And I'm like, oh, no. I'm like, you can't just knock out pull-ups with this thing on. So that being said, I go through the whole thing. Are you familiar with the Murph workout?
Yeah.
Okay. So I do the 100 pull-ups and I'm like, wow, that was really terrible. I do the push-ups and I do the squats, which might have been actually the worst part of it for some reason. And then that last mile, dude, brought me to my knees, like throwing up, like I'm like, I don't think I can finish this mile. I'm walking like hands on my head, and I'm like, this is this is such a weak point in my fitness. That's when it really, it's like, all right, I did crappy on a local 5K.
Yeah.
But whenever I'm like, this 1 mile might kill me. Now, granted, I did a lot of work before that, but I'm like, I just have to go 1 mile. And I'm like, I think I might die. I'm like, I've got to fix this. Like, that's crazy. I'm like, if I ever need to run a mile with a backpack on or something, I'm like, I'm in the woods, I need to get away from, I don't know. Am I even going to be able to do that? Like that's a wild thought. It's like, all right, the thing that might like lead to my eventual death or something is because I can't run a mile. So that's a hard thing to like come face to face with. So, yeah, at that point I'm like, all right, I've got to fix this. There's no other option. So fast forward to the next race. I trained for it. Not well, but I did. Because at the time I'm still in that mentality, like, oh, I hate running. I'll do the bare minimum to get a little bit better at it, but like I still hate it. And that's probably still my thought nowadays, actually. But I signed up for the next 5K, and I'm like, all right, my first one was like 35 minutes.
Yeah.
So I started looking. I'm a competitive person.
Yeah, which is a good time. Right. And it's all relative to certain people, but sure. The best part about running is you can be competitive with yourself. Right. And so it's nice to have that out there.
Well, and that's what in my mind, I'm like, all right, 35 minutes. I'm like, that's my time. I just know I have to beat for me. So I'm like, all right, I've got that 35 minutes. I'm like, all right, a cool goal for me maybe is to go under 30, on my next one, or to, really just because I'm competitive. I want to beat myself. So I'm like 34, I should be happy with.
Yeah.
If I can even do that. So sign up for the next one. And that was in Paducah. And I've done this race every year since then. It was the barbecue on the river 5K in Paducah. It's a flat, like crazy 5K PR course. Like they got some killers. They go out there and just dust like 14s and 15s.
Goodness grief. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's basically downhill though. It's great. But so I go out there and like I had like, I think I ran like a 29 and I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm freaking out. And dude, that was like I've had wins in the gym where it's like, all right, I get a 5-pound PR on my deadlift or something. I'm like, yay. That was the most excited I've ever been about beating myself at something. And that's what started all of this.
Yeah,
dude. It's only been downhill from there. So,
well, that's awesome.
So yeah, I don't know. I've probably done 50 races since then. So
yeah.
And then now it's like you said, time is relative. That's something that I've had to come to conclusion with pretty recently too, because it's like a lot of my runs, if I'm training for a big race and I sign up for a 10K or a half or something, I can't expect myself to, get this crazy good time every time or anything like that. It's like sometimes it's just listening to your body and enjoying a run, or just running with someone else and helping someone else pace. Or I think that's what I like so much about running is that it's like when I want to be competitive with myself, I can be.
Yeah.
And whenever I want to help someone, I can do that. Or if I just need to take it easy on myself because I have, my ankle hurts or my knee hurts, or there's a million different running injuries that we all have, but something hurts. You can also take it easy and still get activity in. And you don't actually have to think about time. You don't have to think about pace. You don't have to, unless you're feeling like $1 million and you want to beat your last thing, you can do that. So that's what I really like about running, I think. And I'm still going to die on the hill that I'm not a runner, that I don't enjoy it, that I do it because it's hard, not because I like it or anything. Like I'll go out for a run with no headphones on just to like torture myself. And, but in the end, it's, it's just that challenging yourself is what's just so good. Like running's helped me mentally more than it has physically, probably. So
I think that's a cool part about running is, especially when you get away from running with headphones and all that, where you have the distractions the whole time, it just gives you a lot of time to think, right? And it gives you a lot more clarity in what you may be struggling with in life, or allows you to get in deeper thought on any situation you may be encountering, whether it be at work or at home. And it just gives you that time to just get away and just think. Yeah. And with all the noise in the world today, you really don't get a ton of time like that, right? And it's a way to, one, get out and enjoy nature if you're running on a trail, or if not, if you're running on a road. I mean, you still get to see different sites, and it can take you different places too. So I think that's a huge part of running. And then as one thing we've always talked about on the show in ultra running, which we'll dive into your race here, it compresses life into such a short period of time. Yeah. So within like Kevin's last race or his Pinhoti and his 100-miler, in 20 hours, you compress all the highs and lows, the challenges, the difficulties in life into that one time frame. And you got to figure out in real time how to overcome them, persist, and push through. So I'm interested now to kind of hear back. We've gotten to hear your 5K journey, right? Where you finally got the itch to start to get a little bit better. Still not a runner yet. But then you signed up and ran a 50-miler race this past weekend. So talk through us kind of more the lead up and the training for it, what that looked like for you. And then once you get to that line on race day, kind of talk about what's going through your head, and we can start diving into the race from there.
For sure. Unfortunately, I'll go ahead and spoil it. I DNF'd on this on my first 50-miler, but I made it 30 miles and had to tap out. But I think a lot of that was it ended up being, the more time I've had to reflect on it, I think mentally, I don't know if I was ready. I don't know if I was ready mentally. Because like I said, I'm like, when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And I've always been like that. So it's like this time, that was a really tough call for me to make, to drop out, because I feel like if I keep pushing, I could either hurt myself, like really hurt myself, or it's like, or I could have this crazy mental breakthrough. It's like, those were my two options.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm fighting with myself because it took me forever to find the aid station I need to go to. So, and it was a crazy walk to get there, but I'm like, just fighting with myself the whole time, like no headphones, just arguing with myself. And that's the cool thing about running, is that, like, dude, you have so many cool conversations like with yourself while you're doing this, because you're putting yourself through some like really insane stress, mentally and physically both. But anyway, so leading up to it, okay, from 5K, obviously, I ended up challenging myself a little more, and I started putting some more miles in, found the half, the 10Ks, did my first marathon last year, and came in under actually, technically I came in over, I think I overtrained for that, because my knee ballooned up really bad on like mile 15 or something.
No.
And I ended up having to walk most of that marathon. So I redeemed myself in Tallahassee this year, and I just flat destroyed it, dude. I felt great. I came in 10 pounds lighter this year, which was a big goal of mine. So destroyed Tallahassee, and that was on like 6 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So all that leading up to, I think on this, I probably came in, I probably had some overtraining, muscle issues anyway.
Yeah.
Because I'm not very nice to myself in training. It's like, I'll be like, all right, well, this needs to be an easy pace. And it was definitely faster than I meant for it to be. So I had a lot of that. I need to be more patient, I think, in my training, especially for these long races, because I did so many 5s and 10s where I could just run as fast as I could for, X amount of minutes and be okay. And now I'm learning patience when I run, and that's been a very hard thing for me to learn.
Yeah.
So this 50-miler, I signed up for it last year. I'd never done anything over a marathon whenever I signed up for it. And I was like, I just finished a race. This was in Paducah. It was some local race. I finished it, and the management team who puts on this one, they put on, I think, Tunnel Hill, and
they do a great job with that one.
Yeah, and they do ruts as well. Run the Stars. So they were there passing out flyers at the finish line, which was perfect marketing, because it's like I destroyed, like I PR'd my 5K on this race. So
right after you finish a race, you're some people are saying, like, I'm not ever going to do it again. But as soon as you cross that line, you're automatically thinking that day, what's the next race? What can I do next? Yeah.
And they're out there, you cross the finish line and you get a flyer.
Yeah.
And they say, hey, real quick, take this. If you sign up for the race by, within 24 hours, which is great timing, because it's that.
You have your runner's high right then. Yeah, for sure.
You sign up for this one in 24 hours. It's like 20% off, and I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
So anyway, I look it up, and I'm like, I've never even touched a trail in my entire life before this. So I look at it, and I'm like, all right. And it was for the Great American Trail Race, which is at the Land Between the Lakes. So they have 4 different distances, and it's it's basically the whole course is on this loop through the Land Between the Lakes called the Canal Loop. And if you sign up for the 23K, it's 1 loop. Sign up for the marathon is 2 loops. The 60K is 3, and then the 50-miler is 4. Like, I'm feeling great. Like, I placed in my age group. I PR'd, I had personal PR. Like, I just felt great. So I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, well, I've already done a marathon. I'm like, that's like, it's 6 months away. I have plenty of time to train for it. I'm like, forget it. I'll just go straight to a 50. Like, with nothing in between.
Yeah.
So I get online, I sign up for it, and I'm like, yeah, that felt nice. That was crazy. I'm a crazy person for doing that. And then the next day, I went to sleep, and then I woke up and was like, because I had my confirmation email, and I was like, oh my God, what did I just
get myself into? Yeah.
I'm like, I can't do 50 miles. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So at that, I knew immediately. I'm like, I'm gonna have to. I need to do something in between to kind of help me buffer that. So I found a race in Alabama. It was called Death by 5K. I don't know if you've heard of this race series, but it's a 5K every 2.5 hours for 24 hours. So it's quote unquote technically an ultra. It ended up being 35 miles was my total, I think, but it was my first time understanding real leg stress. So I'm like, this is a nice way to kind of dip my toes into that world. I think, while still keeping, rest and nutrition, making sure I had plenty of time for that. So I did this race, and it was it was pretty tiresome, but it was very doable from the amount of training that I've done. So I do that. I'm like, all right, that was in November, January, February, March. So I'm like, all right, I've got 4 months now until this 50. I'm like, all right, I did this. This was a trail race, and I was tripping on roots and stuff all the time there too. So I'm like, I understand, and it was way more technical than LBL even was.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right. Kevin told me LBL is a nicer course than this other one was. So I'm like, all right, I understand trails. All I have to do is make sure to get some elevation in my training. I'll be fine. Well, I start training for the 50, and I'm going through my program, and we moved to Paducah. And I think some of this probably had to do with why I couldn't get over this injury during the race, because I've had plenty of like when I did my marathons, I got injured in both of those technically. I had some tendonitis in my Achilles at my last marathon, but I came in so mentally strong. I was like, I don't care. I put it, in the back of my mind. I'm like, I don't care. And I never slowed my pace the entire time. I hit all 26 miles at basically even splits, which is what I've trained for.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, cool. I'll deal with it after the race. That's your mentality. That was my mentality.
Positive or negative. That's the mentality. Yeah.
I'll deal with it afterwards.
Yeah.
It's fine. So I feel like I didn't give myself a good enough opportunity to do that this time. So it's like, all right, 3 weeks ago we move. I didn't halt my training, but I didn't get in all of my runs. I didn't. And then one thing that made me scared on race day was when they were doing the briefing that morning. I wasn't nervous.
Yeah.
And that's not good, because on 5Ks, even now, I've done a million 5Ks. I still get nervous. I'm jittery.
You get the jitters. Your stomach fills in a knot. Yeah, you're ready to go. Yeah.
I had no emotions on race morning. I'm like, what's wrong? Why is my stomach not turning? Why is what's up with that? So, all right. So now we'll get into race. So now that we've gone over, it's like, I have to do 4 loops to make my 50 miles. So, I forgot I had so many I forgots that morning too. Like there were just so many things that just didn't happen the way I wanted them to. I forgot my headphones in my drop bag. I forgot to pull them out last minute and they already took the drop bag out to the aid station. So, so my headphones were in there, and I'm like, it's fine. I can go 8 or 9 miles, however far out it is, without headphones. I forgot my lucky buttons to hold my bib.
Yeah.
So I had to use whatever the safety pin.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, I don't like safety pins. I have this irrational fear that they're going to come undone and stab me while I'm running. So, which they don't. But
there's a chance. There's a chance. Yeah. There's a chance.
Lucky buttons.
Yeah.
So I forgot my lucky buttons. And I forgot my sweatband. Like, I didn't have a sweatband. I didn't have my sunglasses. Like, it was, I don't know. There was something about that morning that was just like nothing was
just off. Yeah.
It was an off day. So, and I know we all have them, but this was the first time I experienced that, honestly. So, so we get in line, and everyone starts running. We get down to the trail, and it's pretty much, I mean, if you know the way a lot of these work, where there's different distances, like I'm at the longest distance. So like after the first lap, like 90% of the people go away.
Yeah.
Because they're there for the, they're trying to PR their 23K, because a lot of these are locals too that are, they race this every year.
Yeah.
So they're racing themselves. They're trying to PR and all this stuff. So on the first lap around, everybody's going the same pace because it's like a bunch of marching ants, on a hill. So the guy behind me, his name was Jordan. He drove 5 hours to come do this race, and it was the longest. He was doing just the one lap, and it was the longest distance this guy's ever done. And he was like, we're talking to each other because I didn't have my headphones in, and he was behind me. He just wanted to chat, and he was like, he was like, is this your like first time doing this trail? And I'm like, yeah. And he was like, actually, I drove down here to see, a couple months ago to see like what the trail was like. He's like, I ran some of it. So we started talking like that. And then he was like, how's this pace for you? And I'm like, it was like, because there were so many people there. It was a slow pace for me. But for him, I was like, it's a slow pace, kind of for me. He's like, I was like, I'd like to get around some of these people. And he was like, well, can you make sure you take me with you? Because he's like, this is actually a good pace for me. And he was like, I kind of need someone to talk to because I always run with a training partner. And he's like, if you don't mind just kind of hanging with me for a little bit. And I was like, I'm going to be out here all day anyway. Like, what's and I'm like, dude, for sure. Like, I would love to like, see if I can like push you a little bit. And he's like, dude, yell at me. Like, I need, and I'm like, oh, all right, now you're in my zone because I like that too. So, so we're going, and we get a few miles up. We get to the aid station where my drop bag is, and my first thought was like, oh, I'll grab my headphones, and I'm like, no, I'm like, this guy needs me right now.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'll just grab him on the next lap around, which is probably another 15 miles or something. But I'm like, whatever. So we get out there. I lose him a couple times, and I'm yelling at him from the distance. If you've been out on any of these trails, like, how it is. So I'm up here and I'm yelling. I'm like, you better catch up, man.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna leave you. And he's like, all right. So I mean, this guy was just like, he was fighting a crazy battle, and he was like, you better make sure I keep fighting, kind of thing. So that was like such a cool thing for me to experience. Like, this whole race was worth it just like to see this guy.
Just for that, yeah.
And then like after he made his lap, actually, I'll tell you this funny part. So there was anytime we would get behind some people, I would look back behind him, and he would either tell me go or stay. Because, I mean, this guy looked like he, just came out of a lake. Like, he was sweating like crazy. And I'm like, oh, I don't want him to like redline or anything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you want to pass? And he was always like, let's go. Like, dude was so mentally strong. I'm like, all right. So, we go up around these people. Well, we go to pass a group up this hill, and he had, he didn't tell me until after this, but he had plantar fasciitis that was acting up really bad. And as soon as we started to hit this hill, apparently his foot just was screaming. So I go up past all these people, go down over the hill, and I turn around. He's not there. I'm like, what the heck? I'm not slowing down. I'm just keeping the same pace. I keep going. And then I see all these other people coming up. I'm looking down over the hill, and I'm not seeing him at all. And I'm like, oh, dang, I hope he's okay.
Yeah.
And I keep going. I slow down just a little bit. And I'm like, all right, I'll give him a little bit of chance to catch up. some people passing me, and dude, he never comes. And I'm like, oh man, he might have just gassed out. I'm like, well, yeah, nice.
Here we go.
Nice knowing
Yeah.
you. So I just kept on running, and dude, I get like 2 or 3 miles up the path, and he comes. I just hear someone just getting it up behind me because I don't have headphones in. You know, I'm just enjoying the scenery, I guess. I just hear someone getting it, and I just hear, I'm back. I turn around, dude, this guy's just getting it up, and he was like, I didn't think I was gonna catch you. And I'm like, dude, let's freaking go, dude. I was so pumped that he just sprinted, like after his foot just kind of helped, I guess came back into play. He just comes up and he's like just sprints back and finds me again. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, hang with me, man. I'm like, you're almost done. So we get to the last aid station where he cuts off and goes back into town. And just big bro hug, like type of thing. And I'm like, dude, that was so amazing. As soon as that happened, dude, he was my good luck charm. As soon as that happened, I went down the hill to start my second lap, and I tripped on a root. And I strained a couple groin muscles. I messed my knee up. I have a lingering meniscus injury on my knee. Reactivated that bad boy. Twist my ankle a little bit. Just basically shattered my right leg. This is basically what I did. Which normally I will pick up one of those injuries because they're all recurring injuries.
Yeah.
I'll pick up one of them during a race, but not all of them.
Don't expect to get all of them at the same time. Yeah.
So that was my battle. So that was on mile 12. And so that was the start of the second loop. I make it to about mile 17, which sucks for any long race anyway. Everyone knows the dreaded mile 17. So that on top of those was just that was pounding me mentally as much as it was physically. So then I started incorporating some walking, and I'm like, oh, I can't do this early. I can't do it this early. Like I'm not even half away. So I do kind of this run walk thing, which is great. Like I probably should have been doing that to begin with, in that race for my first long one. But I started incorporating this, and then it started being way more walking than running, which is fine. But it's like I also have to be around each aid station at a certain time, or I get cut off because you're only, they have a 12-hour cutoff for the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if I'm going to be doing more walking than running, I'm not going to make my goal. So obviously nothing wrong with, doing a walk run, but I literally didn't have time for it. So I'm like, oh crap. So I started like just mentally like kind of freaking out. Like, I don't know if it's going to work. So I get a little bit past mile 20, and I catch this crazy second wind where I feel like my leg's just finally going numb, and I'm like, yes, let's go. So I take off at a pace that was probably too fast. And I do 5 more miles, and then dude, my leg just shuts down. I'm having to like all the little hills with the rocks. I'm having to like physically pick my leg up with my hands and like move them over some of these rocks. And I'm like, all right, this is not good. So from that to mile 30, I had about 5 more miles until the drop location where my wife could come pick me up. There's 4 aid stations, but there's only one that was accessible by vehicle. And I called her like maybe a couple miles after that. And I'm like, I'm in bad shape. So I'm out there. I'm in like, I can't, my nutrition was bad. I was severely dehydrated. I couldn't hold down food or water just from pain. Like I was hungry, but like the smell of food like made me like gag. And dude, I fought this crazy battle out there, and I never, like, that's never happened before in long run trainings or anything. So I think that was the first time I was ever faced with like the craziest amount of adversity, that you could like get in a race, and it all hit me all at one time. So I'm like, you know what? I could technically walk, another 7 miles to the finish line and take my 60K belt. But I'm like, that's not what I came out here for. So the mental battle with me is like, I came out here for 50, I want 50.
Yeah.
So I just dropped at the aid station. I'm like, just take me home. Don't take me back to the line. Just take me home.
Yeah.
I went home immediately. So, which is a 10-hour endurance race in Paducah in June. And I'm going for 50 again. I'm like, dude, no, that's what I came here for. That's what I'm going to get. So, but there's so many things that I know I need to do differently in my training, in my preparation and things like that for the next one. Like this was like I said, I signed up for it kind of on a whim. and was like, all right, I want this 50, but I feel like I didn't put in the work to earn it this time.
Yeah.
So, and this next time I will. So
well, that's awesome. Well, that's exciting. Yeah. So that's a lot packed into the story of your race there. So, obviously signed up for the next one. Excited for it. Is it on the same trail or is it a separate trail?
It's at a park in Paducah.
At a park. Okay.
It's no routes. So,
hopefully, hopefully they don't find their way to you and do that again. Well, that's good. Yeah. So, what do you feel like? You said you've learned a lot. So what are you going to focus on more moving into this next race? Is it more nutritional? Do you feel like it's more mental or physical? Just consistency with that, with your training plan?
Nutrition. My nutrition, I have nailed down pretty tight. For my run, I never feel dehydrated, even on my when I was doing my marathon, and I didn't really slow down at aid stations. Like I still, like, I had everything down pat. Like I knew exactly, when to take, two cups of tailwind versus, the water, and when I need to be slamming gels, and that stuff has never upset my stomach. Like I have, because I take them on, like, when I train. So I train with what I take on the race. So I've never had a problem with nutrition there. It's just at this particular one, I started getting sick because I was in so much pain. So I'm like, all right, I need to avoid the pain, obviously. To do that, I need to make sure a couple things happen. One, that I come in, well-trained, not overtrained, not undertrained. I need to come in well-trained, and which was an issue with this one because, like I said, I can make excuses, but it's like, all right, so for 3 weeks we were, making trips back and forth from Bowling Green, like moving our house and all this stuff. And it's like, I'd be like, all right, well, today I don't really have time to do that 9 miler. I'm like, it's only, it's a 9 mile. It's not going to make that much of a difference. When what I've learned is that every single thing, like every single part of your training plan makes a difference.
Yeah.
And even though, like, this one piece of it may not seem important at this point in time, like, you got to do it. So, and that's not just with running. Like I know that with my professional life, my personal life and stuff too. It's like every single thing you do really does add up and make a difference, because it's like, in the end, to get the goal that you want, it's just a bunch of tiny pieces that you have to put together to make your goal. So it's like, all right, if you start leaving pieces out, dude, you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
So that's what I found out. So now I have my redemption program, is what I'm calling it. And that takes priority, which kind of sucks because I really wanted to get this 50 over with, because that for whatever reason, that's the thing that keeps me up at night. It's like, I want a 50, and everyone has their own goals and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I know you did a 50 not long ago. It's like, do you want 100 now? Is that your next, or
eventually? Okay. I feel like, I mean, within the next year or two, I'll probably make that chance. Cool. 50 right now at my body weight. Just my training level, like how much I can train, it fits more my lifestyle right now, where it's easier to accomplish. But 100's definitely in the works sometime soon. Yeah.
Well, good for you. Because I have no aspirations of doing it.
Yeah.
But this 50, I'm like, what I had told myself as like kind of a treat. I'm like, all right, once you do 50, you can get back to like in the gym, like lifting weights and put some muscle back on, because it is very, very hard to do both.
Yeah.
And I'm a dad. You're a dad. You understand how it is.
Yeah.
We have families, we have jobs and things like that. So, so it's hard to do both. So that carrot that I was seeing, where I'm like, all right, let's get this 50 over with, so I can stop distance training again. I can just get back to, doing the fun race, the quote unquote fun races is what I call them.
Yeah.
The 10Ks, the half marathons and stuff like that. Cause those are the things I really love. It's like, doing the marathons and the ultras and stuff. I don't love that. And I think that's why I'm doing them now. It's because that's the next challenge.
Yeah.
So I don't just love it. Like that's a hard thing for me, and I need to do something harder, else I'll go crazy. So, I was like, all right, once we get this 50 over with, I'm going to get back in the gym, get on a nice program, sort of a hybrid program, do some light running, and keep some endurance, obviously. That way I can keep doing, just some local races. But I'm like, I really, really, really want to get back in the gym and lift, or like, just build muscle. It's like I'm in there a couple days a week now for maintenance, but I really want to put some muscle back on, put some muscle back on, and now I'm like, all right, well, this gets postponed.
Well, after June, you can get back into it, right? So
well, in my new gym, I have two marker boards. I have the one over here above my dumbbell rack, and then I have this other one over here next to like my timer and things. And this one I have I already written my entire program out, my sort of weightlifting hybrid program out on this one, because I was ready just to start as soon as I got done with this 50. I'm like, I'm going to dive straight back in. And now this one is just sitting there, and I don't know, maybe I should cover it up or something as like a motivation.
Yeah.
So on this other one, I just, I took the time out and wrote down my redemption plan. I'm like, this has to come first now.
Yeah.
So,
cover it up, save it for another day, right? Well, as we work to wrap things up here, there's just a couple things I want to just get you to expand on. So obviously your journey has been a long journey, right? So started back in high school with your first leg day where you said you'd never touch a weight again because you couldn't walk for a full week, right? A lot of our clients we're working with, they're just getting started too. So looking back, talking to your younger self, what's like a little piece of advice you would give yourself, like getting started, kind of looking back at everything you've been through now? What would be the one thing you would kind of tell yourself, or a couple things it could even be, just to get started and stay consistent with it?
I would say the most important thing is that it's not going to happen in one day, and you don't need to force it to happen to try to happen in one day. So whatever journey you're going through, whether if you're like, oh, I have a goal of, losing X amount of weight or gaining some muscle or some size, or, because everybody's goals are a little bit different, or just to be more consistent with, in the gym, or setting a better example for my family, whatever your primary goal is, it's not going to happen in one day, and you don't need to try to force that. So it's, I went into that first workout of my entire life with the mentality of, all right, well, everyone else is already doing this, so I'll just do what they're doing. And that's not the mindset of that you need to go into, because there's so much of there's a learning curve, when you're kind of new to all this, and you need to listen to people who know what they're talking about, because I didn't have that example, and I basically just tried and failed for many years before I found my community, before I found those people who can give me, good examples, before I found people who actually understand how muscles work, how nutrition works, and things like that. So those people are at your disposal, obviously.
Yeah.
So use them, because that's what they're for. And, these are, especially when we're talking about MuuvWell, I mean, you guys are like health, like monsters, like you know how to train, you know how to eat, you know how muscles work, you've tried and failed many times. You guys are business owners. Business owners fail way more than they win. If, for people who've never tried to do any type of thing in business, you fail, 9 times out of 10. And it's just like, that 1 time out of 10 is what keeps you hanging on to that goal. And it's like, okay, they have these tools at their disposal with MuuvWell. They need to be using them, because you guys know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's taking it slow, being patient. And I will say too, that's one thing, not to choose, running over any other type of exercise. Like if you're new to any of that, I say try it all. I love it all. Even to this day, like if someone's like, hey man, you want to go do a CrossFit class? Sure, dude. Yeah, for sure. Hey, you want to come to jiu-jitsu? Oh, for sure. Like in any type of fitness at this point is fun to me, because it's challenging to my body. And I would say try a couple of different things, but more than anything, just be patient.
Yeah.
So, because just give yourself some time, give yourself some grace, because change doesn't happen overnight. It never has, and never will. So you just kind of have to tell yourself that, I think.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that insight. And hopefully anybody listening or anybody tuning into the podcast can take that away as well. Consistency, patience, and surround yourself with people that know what they're talking about, right? And obviously that's something we preach all the time. I know I'd mentioned it before, is just the small, consistent changes over time are eventually going to add up, right? But if we try to force it to happen too quickly, like you said, we may not see that change and fall off before we even start to see the change and the fruit of our hard work really coming to bear. Right. So, I appreciate everybody tuning in to the podcast. Appreciate Adam hopping in today and you all tolerating me as a host today. Probably wasn't the best of anybody on our team that we could have gotten, but I appreciate you hopping on and sharing your story. And hopefully we'll be able to get you back on again in June once he crushes this 50-mile race. Because I know you can do it. Because if I can do it, I know anybody can do it.
I've got the pressure now.
Oh, no pressure. The world's going to know that Adam is going to be crushing his race in June. So we'll get you back on once you crush that goal and knock it out. So we're excited to see where you're at. But I appreciate you hopping on and appreciate everybody listening to us. We'll see you next week on the MuuvWell podcast.
Thanks, man.
We got it.